The slap echoed through the penthouse like a gunshot. Amira's hand trembled as she pulled it back, her palm stinging from the impact against Lee Jun's perfect face. Tears blurred her vision as she clutched the duvet tighter around her naked body, the white silk sheets beneath her stained with evidence of what she'd given him. What she'd given away. So that's all I'm worth to you? Her voice cracked, raw with betrayal. $200,000, right, Lee Jun? So all you said were lies. Your love was a lie, and all you wanted was to use me. Lee Jun sat frozen on the bed, his long black hair falling across his face, his eyes wide with something that looked almost like regret. But Amira couldn't look at him anymore. Not at the man who'd made her believe in fairy tales. Not at the monster holding his phone with those damning messages still glowing on the screen. Did you do it? Have you had her yet? So you did it. You won the bet. Way to go, Lee Jun. They don't call you the Mafia boss for nothing. Money transferred, $200,000. She grabbed her clothes from the floor, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold them. The room spun around her, expensive and cold and wrong. Everything was wrong. She'd kept herself pure for 26 years, waiting for someone who would love her, cherish her, see her as more than just another conquest. And in 3 days, this beautiful devil had torn down every wall she'd built. Amira, wait, Lee Jun's voice was hoarse, desperate. Don't. She backed away from him, yanking on her dress. Don't you dare speak to me. Don't you dare touch me. The elevator doors couldn't close fast enough. As soon as they did, she collapsed against the mirrored wall, her reflection showing her everything she'd become. Mascara streaked down her dark cheeks. Her long, straight hair was tangled from his fingers. Her lips were swollen from his kisses. Her body ached in places she'd never been touched before last night. And she'd trusted him. God, she'd trusted him. The sobs came in waves, violent and uncontrollable, as the elevator descended from his penthouse prison. Each floor that passed felt like another piece of her dignity falling away. When the doors finally opened to the lobby, she ran. Past the doorman's concerned look, past the early morning joggers, into the first taxi she could find. Just drive, she gasped. Please, just drive. Back in the penthouse, Lee Jun sat motionless on his bed, a cigarette burning forgotten between his fingers. His cheek still stung from her slap, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the emptiness spreading through his chest. He stared at nothing, his mind replaying the look in her eyes. That devastating combination of hurt and hatred. Then his gaze fell to the sheets. Blood. Not much, but enough. Crimson against pristine white. The cigarette fell from his fingers. No, he whispered, his voice breaking. No. She'd been a virgin. His Amira had been a virgin, and he'd known it, and he'd taken her anyway. For a bet. For $200,000 and his pride. Because Min Sun had laughed at him. Because Kong Lee had challenged him. Because he couldn't stand the idea of a woman not falling at his feet. Lee Jun crumpled to his knees, the blood-stained sheets clutched in his hands. He was the devil. The monster everyone said he was. The evil mafia boss who destroyed everything beautiful he touched. And Amira had been the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. What have I done? His voice was barely audible. God, what have I done? But to understand how Korea's most feared mafia boss ended up on his knees, broken by a woman's tears, we need to go back. Back to 3 days ago, when everything started with a broken arm and a bet that would change 2 lives forever. Seoul International Hospital buzzed with its usual controlled chaos. Nurses rushed between rooms. Doctors shouted orders. Machines beeped their steady rhythms. In room 304, Lee Jun lay on a hospital bed looking like sin wrapped in a hospital gown. His left arm was clearly broken, splinted and swollen, but somehow he still managed to look like he'd stepped out of a magazine. Long black hair spread across the pillow, sharp cheekbones, dangerous eyes that had made men confess their secrets and women forget their names. His best friend Min Sun sat beside him, scrolling through his phone. The nurse should be here any minute. I thought you wanted to talk about the Baekdu cartel situation, Lee Jun muttered, wincing as he tried to add just his position. Just wait. The door opened, and she walked in. Time seemed to slow. Amira Iwatani moved with quiet confidence, her dark skin glowing under the harsh fluorescent lights, her long straight hair pulled back in a professional ponytail. She wore simple blue scrubs, no makeup, nothing special. But there was something about her that made Lee Jun's breath catch. Maybe it was the intelligence in her eyes, or the way she carried herself like she owned the room, or the fact that she looked at him like he was just another patient. Not a mafia boss. Not a legend. Just a man with a broken arm. Mr. Lee Jun, she said, her voice professional, accented with something melodic. She checked his chart without meeting his eyes. Broken arms from what I see here. Let's take a look. Yes, nurse, Lee Jun said, his voice suddenly softer, almost boyish. He shot Min-sun a look, but his friend just smirked. And it hurts so bad. Really bad. Amira moved closer, her fingers gentle as she examined the splint. Where exactly does it hurt? Here, Lee Jun said in Korean, positioning himself slightly. And here. As Amira leaned in to check, Lee Jun tilted his head, positioning his lips for a kiss, that signature move that had worked on countless women. Smack. Amira's hand connected with his broken arm. Oh, you. Lee Jun yelped, genuine pain flashing across his face. That hurt. Yeah, serves you right trying to flirt with your nurse. Amira stepped back, her expression unimpressed. Well, good thing you'll live. Don't know if that's a good thing for the world, though. I'll send a nurse to clean and bandage your arm properly. She turned to leave, and Lee Jun felt something strange. Panic. She was walking away, and he couldn't let her. Wait, Nurse Amira. She paused at the door, one eyebrow raised. God, even her skeptical look was beautiful. Do you mind if I had your number? By Mr. Lee Jun. The door closed behind her, but not before Lee Jun caught the smallest smirk on her lips. She was amused. Playing hard to get. He liked that. Min-sun burst out laughing. Did the great Lee Jun just get rejected? By a nurse? Shut up. A black woman just turned you down flat. This is the best day of my life. Before Lee Jun could respond, another friend walked in. Calmly, tall and calculating, took one look at Lee Jun's face and grinned. What happened? You look like someone just stole your favorite car. Min-sun couldn't contain himself. The high and mighty Korean mafia boss couldn't get a black woman to fall for him. She just walked out without a second glance. Calm Lee's eyes gleamed with that dangerous light that usually preceded bad decisions. Really? The legendary Lee Jun, who's had actresses and heiresses begging for his attention, got rejected by a hospital nurse? She's not just a nurse, Lee Jun said quietly, still staring at the door. She's different. Different enough to bet on? Kong Lee pulled out his phone. $200,000 says you can't make her fall for you. Lee Jun's pride, already wounded, flared hot in his chest. What? You heard me. $200,000. Make her fall in love with you completely, and I'll transfer the money. But Lee Jun, if you can't do it, if she doesn't fall. Kong Lee smirked. Well, that would be embarrassing, wouldn't it? Min-sun leaned forward. Come on, man. This is stupid. But Lee Jun was already shaking Kong Lee's hand, his jaw set. Give me 2 days. She'll be screaming my name. What Lee Jun didn't say, what he couldn't say, was that something about Amira had already gotten under his skin. The way she looked at him like he was just a man. The way she hadn't been impressed by his reputation, or his looks, or his power. For the first time in his life, someone had seen past the legend to the broken boy underneath. And that terrified him more than any cartel ever could. That evening, Amira pushed through the hospital's main entrance, exhaustion weighing down every step. 12-hour shifts were brutal, but they were worth it. Everyone she saved brought her closer to her dream of opening a clinic back in Lagos. She raised her hand to hail a taxi. An engine roared to life. A Bugatti Chiron, black as midnight and worth more than she'd make in 5 years, pulled up directly in front of her. The window rolled down smoothly, revealing Lee Jun in an Armani suit, his broken hand resting in a designer cast, his long hair slicked back like some kind of dark prince. Need a ride, Nurse Amira? Amira felt her heart skip, but she forced her expression to remain neutral. No, thank you. She turned away, but he was already stepping out of the car. In the fading Seoul sunset, he looked unreal. Too handsome. Too dangerous. Too everything. Please, he said. Just let me drive you home. It's the least I can do for being inappropriate earlier. The least you can do is leave me alone. I can't do that. Why not? Lee Jun opened his mouth, then closed it. Because I made a bet? Because my pride is wounded? Because you're the first woman who's ever made me feel like I'm not enough? He couldn't say any of that. Instead, he dropped to his knees right there on the hospital steps. What are you doing? Amira hissed, looking around at the gathering crowd. Get up. Not until you agree to let me drive you home. His voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. Please, Nurse Amira, give me a chance to apologize properly. People were starting to take photos. Amira felt heat rising to her cheeks, a mixture of embarrassment and something else she didn't want to name. This man, this notorious mafia boss, was on his knees in public because of her. Okay, I'll go with you. Just get up. His smile was devastating as he stood, opening the passenger door with a flourish. Amira climbed into the bucket seat, clinging to her nurse scrubs like armor. The interior smelled like expensive leather and his cologne, something dark and spicy that made her head spin. As he pulled into Seoul traffic, Amira couldn't help stealing glances at his profile. Strong jaw, perfect nose, those dangerous eyes focused on the road. His injured hand rested on the gearshift, and she noticed how careful he was with it despite trying to look casual. So, Nurse Amira, tell me more about yourself. I agreed to let you drive me home, not talk to you. Lee Jun laughed, a real laugh that transformed his face. You're tough. I like that. I'm not trying to be anything you like. Then why do you fidget when I get close? He leaned toward her slightly, and Amira's breath caught. The car swerved, narrowly missing a sedan. Better keep your eyes on the road, not on me. Amira snapped, her heart racing. Hard to do when you're the most beautiful thing in the city. His voice was quiet, sincere in a way that made her defenses waver. Does that line usually work? I don't know. I've never meant it before. They drove in silence for a moment, the city lights beginning to flicker on around them. Amira directed him to her modest apartment building in Itaewon, nothing like the luxury he was probably used to. Thank you for the ride, she said, reaching for the door handle. Amira. The way he said her name made her pause. Have dinner with me tomorrow. Please. Why? Because I want to know you. The real you. Not just the nurse who put me in my place. You don't give up, do you? Not when something matters. Amira studied his face, looking for the lie, the game, the angle. But all she saw was hope, raw and unexpected. Against every instinct screaming at her to run, she found herself nodding. One dinner. That's it. His smile could have lit up the entire city. Inside her apartment, Amira's roommate Chidinma practically ambushed her at the door. Girl. Was that Lee Jun? The Lee Jun? The mafia boss? It was just a ride home. Just a ride? In a Bugatti? Amira, that man is dangerous. I know. He's also fine as hell. Amira couldn't help the smile that tugged at her lips. I know that too. So what are you going to do? Have dinner with him. Just once. Chidinma grabbed her shoulders. Be careful, okay? Men like that, they don't just want dinner. They want to own you. But the next morning, Amira's careful walls started to crumble. A delivery man arrived at the hospital with a massive bouquet of white roses, so large it took 2 people to carry it. The card read simply, Dinner tonight? 7 p.m. Moonlight Pavilion. Please say yes. LJ. Her coworkers swarmed around her, chattering excitedly. White roses were her favorite, but she'd never told him that. How did he know? An hour later, another delivery. A Hermes Birkin bag, the kind that had years-long waiting lists, the kind that cost more than her annual salary. Inside was a note, for carrying all my hopes. See you tonight. Amira stared at the bag, her hands trembling. This was too much. Too fast. Too everything. But when 7 o'clock came, she found herself standing outside Moonlight Pavilion in a borrowed dress, her heart hammering against her ribs. Lee Jun was waiting at a private table on the rooftop, the Han River glittering below them, the Seoul skyline spread out like scattered diamonds. He stood when he saw her, and the look on his face made her forget to breathe. You came, he said softly. I said I would. He pulled out her chair, and they sat under the stars. The meal was exquisite, but Amira barely tasted it. They talked instead. Really talked. She told him about growing up in Lagos, about her grandmother who raised her, about the scholarship that brought her to Seoul, about her dream of opening a clinic back home. He told her about losing his parents at 15, about being forced into his father's world too young, about the loneliness that came with power, about how sometimes he looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back. Do you regret it? Amira asked. The life you lead? Every day, Lee Jun admitted. But I don't know how to be anything else. You could be anything you wanted. You're choosing this. Maybe I was. Until I met you. Their hands touched across the table, fingers intertwining. Other diners stared, whispered. A Korean mafia boss with a black woman was scandalous enough to make headlines. But neither of them cared. When he drove her home, the city lights reflecting in the car windows, the tension between them was thick enough to taste. They sat in his car outside her building, neither wanting the night to end. Amira, Lee Jun said, turning to face her. I know you think I'm a playboy. And maybe I was. But meeting you, it's like someone turned on a light in a room I didn't know was dark. That's beautiful, Amira whispered. Did you practice that? No. I'm terrifying myself right now. She laughed, and the sound made his chest ache. Then she leaned in, and he met her halfway, and their lips touched. Soft at first, testing, then deeper. Desperate. Like two people drowning and finding air in each other. When they finally pulled apart, Amira's hand was on his chest, feeling his heart race under her palm. This is crazy, she breathed. The best things are. The next day, Lee Jun showed up at the hospital again. More flowers. A Cartier bracelet that made her coworkers gasp. But it was the handwritten note that made her cry. Thank you for seeing me. Really seeing me. LJ. That night, he took her to Club Obsidian in Gangnam, the most exclusive nightclub in Seoul. In the VIP section, with champagne flowing and music pounding, Amira felt alive in a way she never had before. She danced until her feet hurt, laughed until her sides ached, lived until she forgot every reason she should be scared. Lee Jun couldn't take his eyes off her. The way she moved, the way she smiled, the way she made everything else in the room disappear. This wasn't about the bet anymore. Somewhere between her rejection and her laughter, between her walls and her trust, he'd fallen. Near midnight, Lee Jun leaned close to her ear, his breath warm against her skin. Come home with me. Amira's heart stopped. Lee Jun, we don't have to do anything. I just want to be with you. Talk to you. Wake up and see your face. She should say no. Every rational part of her brain screamed to say no. But her heart had other plans. Okay. His penthouse was everything she'd imagined and nothing she'd expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul, minimalist furniture, artwork that probably cost more than her entire life. But what struck her was how empty it felt. Like a showroom, not a home. You live here alone? She asked. I've always been alone. The vulnerability in his voice made her turn to him. In the soft lamplight, he looked younger, less like a mafia boss and more like a lost boy playing dress-up in a man's world. Not tonight, Amira said softly. He poured champagne, put on slow music, and they danced in his living room with the city sparkling below. His hand was gentle on her waist, hers resting on his shoulder, and they swayed to a rhythm only they could hear. Amira, he whispered against her hair. I need to tell you something. What? But he couldn't say it. Couldn't tell her about the bet, about Kong Lee, about how this started as a game. Because it wasn't a game anymore. Not for him. I've never felt like this before, he said instead. I didn't know I could. She pulled back to look at him, searching his face. Lee Jun, I need you to know something too. I haven't. Understanding dawned in his eyes. You're a virgin. Amira nodded, embarrassed. I wanted to wait for someone who mattered. Someone who saw me as more than just a body. Lee Jun felt his heart crack open. She was trusting him with something precious, something sacred. And he was lying to her. The bet burned in his mind like acid. We don't have to do anything, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I meant what I said. I just want to be with you. But I want to. Amira stepped closer, her hand on his chest. I want you, Lee Jun. I've never been more sure of anything. When he kissed her this time, it was different. Reverent. Like she was made of starlight and he was afraid she'd disappear. He led her to his bedroom, and every touch was gentle, every kiss a question she answered with her body. Are you sure? He asked one last time, his forehead against hers. I've never been more sure. The moment he realized she truly was a virgin, the moment he felt her tense and saw the pain flash across her face, Lee Jun almost stopped, almost told her everything. But she pulled him closer, whispered his name like a prayer, and he was lost. Afterward, she fell asleep in his arms, her head on his chest, her breathing slow and peaceful. Lee Jun stared at the ceiling, his phone buzzing on the nightstand. Messages from Kong Lee and Min Sun lighting up the screen. But he couldn't look at them, couldn't face what he'd done. Instead, he held Amira tighter and told himself he'd make it right. Tomorrow, he'd tell her everything. Tomorrow, he'd end the bet, return the money, and start over. Clean. But tomorrow came too soon. Amira woke first, golden morning light streaming through the windows. She smiled, reaching for her phone to check the time. That's when she saw his phone next to hers, the screen lit up with notifications. Curiosity made her glance at it. Then horror froze her blood. Did you do it? Have you had her yet? So you did it. You won the bet. Way to go, Lee Jun. They don't call you the Mafia boss for nothing. Money transferred, $200,000 from Kong Lee. Amira's hands trembled as she scrolled through more messages, each one a knife to her heart. The dates. The conversations. The planning. It had all been a game. That. She was worth $200,000 to him. That's when Lee Jun woke up to find her standing there, his phone in her hands, tears streaming down her beautiful face. And we know what happened next. In the taxi, Amira couldn't stop shaking. The driver kept asking if she was okay, but she couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. She'd given him everything. Her trust, her body, her heart. And it had all been a lie. Her phone buzzed. Lee Jun calling. She rejected it. It buzzed again. Again. Finally, she blocked his number, her chest heaving with sobs. When she got home, Chidima took one look at her anew. She held Amira while she cried, didn't ask questions, just let her fall apart. Lee Jun called from different numbers. Sent text after text. Please let me explain. It wasn't like that. Amira, please. She blocked every single one. The flowers started arriving the next day. Massive bouquets that filled her apartment. She sent them all back. The gifts, the jewelry, the handwritten letters begging for forgiveness. All returned. After a week, he stopped trying. In his penthouse, Lee Jun existed in a fog. Min Sun tried to talk to him, but he just stared at the blood-stained sheets he couldn't bring himself to change. Kong Lee tried to give him the money. Lee Jun threw it back in his face. Keep it. I don't want your fucking blood money. It was just a bet, man. Just a game. She wasn't a game. Lee Jun's voice cracked. She was real. She was the only real thing in my entire life, and I destroyed her. But across the city, Amira was dealing with a different kind of destruction. 1 month later, she sat in her bathroom staring at 3 pregnancy tests. All positive. Her hands shook as she covered her mouth, muffling the scream trying to escape. Pregnant. She was pregnant with Lee Jun's baby. How did I go from keeping my virginity for 26 years, she whispered to her reflection, from not letting any man touch me, to falling for a Korean man in 3 days? Amira, you're just so dumb. Chidima found her on the bathroom floor an hour later, still holding the tests, still crying. Oh, Amira, Chidima whispered, sitting beside her. What are you going to do? I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. You have to tell him. Tell him what? That I'm carrying the child of a man who used me for money? That I'm stupid enough to still love him even after what he did? He deserves to know. And the baby deserves a father. The baby deserves better than a monster. But Chidinma was persistent. Days later, she convinced Amira that she at least had to try. Had to look Lee Jun in the eye and tell him what happened. Had to give him the chance to step up or prove he was the villain she thought he was. So Amira found herself outside his penthouse building, her hand on her still flat stomach, practicing what to say. She'd tell him about the baby, make it clear she expected nothing from him, and then leave Seoul forever. Simple. She knocked on his door, her heart in her throat. The door opened. A beautiful Korean woman stood there, wearing Lee Jun's t-shirt, her hair messy, her feet bare. She looked comfortable. Familiar. Like she belonged there. Can I help you? The woman asked sweetly. Amira felt the world tilt. Another woman. Of course there was another woman. Why had she expected anything different? Wrong apartment, Amira managed. Sorry. She turned away, the woman calling after her. Wait, are you looking for my brother? But Amira was already in the elevator. The doors closing, her world shattering all over again. She didn't hear the last word. Didn't know the woman was Seo Jun, Lee Jun's younger sister, visiting from Busan. All she knew was that Lee Jun had moved on. Had probably never even cared in the first place. That night, Amira sat in her bathtub, fully clothed, water running cold around her. She cried until she had no tears left, then cried some more. My baby will never know what kind of monster you are, she promised her reflection. I'll protect you from him. I swear it. 2 weeks later, Chidima couldn't take it anymore. She watched Amira waste away, watched her friend touch her stomach with a mixture of love and despair, and decided someone had to fix this, even if Amira hated her for it. She stormed into JK Holdings, Lee Jun's corporate empire, with the fury of a woman on a mission. Security tried to stop her, but she was having none of it. Tell Lee Jun that Amira's friend is here, and if he doesn't see me right now, I'll make a scene that ends up on every news channel in Korea. 5 minutes later, she was in his office. Lee Jun looked terrible. His suit was wrinkled, his hair unwashed, dark circles under his eyes like bruises. He looked up when she entered, hope flashing across his face before dying when he saw it wasn't Amira. "What do you want?" His voice was hollow. "I want you to know that you're an asshole," Chidinma said. "The biggest asshole I've ever met." "I know. Is that all?" "No." She took a breath. "Amira is pregnant." The world stopped. Lee Jun's face went white, his hands gripping the edge of his desk. "What?" "She's pregnant with your baby. And she's at the airport right now, leaving Seoul, going back to Lagos. If you want to make things right, if you ever actually cared about her, you'll go." "No." Lee Jun was already running. He hit the parking garage at full sprint, his designer shoes sliding on the concrete. The Bugatti Chiron roared to life, and he tore out onto Seoul's streets with only one thought burning in his mind: don't let her leave. Don't lose them. Traffic was hell, but Lee Jun drove like a man possessed. He wove between cars, jumped lanes, ran red lights. Behind him, police sirens wailed, but he didn't care. News helicopters picked up the chase, broadcasting it live. "This is breaking news. Korean Mafia boss Lee Jun is currently speeding through Seoul in what appears to be a high-speed chase toward Incheon International Airport." Inside the plane, Amira sat in her window seat, hand on her stomach, tears streaming down her face. The plane began to taxi toward the runway. "Goodbye, Lee Jun," she whispered. "Goodbye to the dream of us." But outside, a black Bugatti crashed through the airport barrier, security scrambling, alarms blaring. Lee Jun drove directly onto the tarmac, his car pulling in front of the moving aircraft. The pilots had no choice. They slammed the brakes, the massive plane shuddering to a halt mere feet from his car. Passengers screamed. News helicopters zoomed in, and Lee Jun stepped out of his car, standing in front of the plane like a man ready to die. The plane door opened. Airport security was shouting, but Lee Jun ignored them all, running up the stairs into the cabin. Passengers gasped and pulled out their phones as he stood in the aisle, chest heaving, hair wild, looking like he'd just outrun death itself. And then he saw her. Amira, frozen in her seat, eyes wide, hand protectively over her stomach. Lee Jun dropped to his knees right there in the aisle. "That woman you saw," he said, his voice breaking. "That was my sister, Seo Jun, from Busan. She was visiting for the week." "Lee Jun, you're not a bet. You were never just a bet." Tears streamed down his face, and passengers around them were openly crying. "Yes, it started that way. Yes, Kong Lee offered me money to make you fall for me. But Amira, somewhere between your first smile and your last kiss, I fell too. I fell so hard I forgot the bet existed. I fell so hard I can't breathe without you. You hurt me," Amira sobbed. "You destroyed me. I know. And I'll spend every single day for the rest of my life making it up to you. But please don't take my child away. Don't take yourself away. You're carrying our baby, and I love you more than I've ever loved anything in my entire life." The plane was silent except for their crying. Then Amira stood, her legs shaking, and Lee Jun remained on his knees. "I hate you for what you did," she said. "I know. But I hate myself more for still loving you." "Amira?" She pulled him to his feet and kissed him. Desperate, messy, tear-soaked, perfect. The entire plane erupted in applause, passengers cheering, filming, crying. The news headline read, "Korean Mafia boss chases down plane for love." 1 month later, they were happy. Really happy. Amira moved into his penthouse, her small belly starting to show. Lee Jun was obsessed with her pregnancy, reading every book, attending every appointment, his hand constantly on her stomach waiting for their baby to kick. They were shopping at Lotte department store, looking at baby clothes, when Lee Jun stepped away to take a business call. Amira was holding a tiny onesie, imagining their baby wearing it, when someone grabbed her from behind. A cloth pressed over her mouth. Chemical smell. The world going fuzzy. "Lee Jun," she tried to scream, but darkness swallowed her whole. When Lee Jun returned 2 minutes later, she was gone. Security footage showed a black van, professional kidnapping, no trace. His phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, lover." The voice was familiar, poisonous. "Lona Kong." Lee Jun's blood ran cold. "If you hurt her, then you'll do exactly what I say. I'm at the old warehouse in Incheon. Come alone." "And Lee Jun? Prove you still love me, or I kill your pregnant girlfriend and your bastard child." The warehouse was abandoned, rusty, perfect for nightmares. Lee Jun arrived with his men positioned in the shadows, but he walked in alone as instructed. Lona stood in the center, wearing a red dress, looking beautiful and insane. Behind her, a large screen showed Amira tied to a chair in some dark room, tears streaming down her face, her baby bump visible even through her clothes. "Hello, my love," Lona purred. "Miss me? Where is she?" "Safe. For now. But here's the thing, Lee Jun. You left me for her. Threw me away like garbage. So now you're going to prove you never loved her at all. What do you want? Kiss me. Like you used to. Like you mean it. Make me believe you love me, not her, or I give the order and she dies." On the screen, Amira was shaking her head violently, screaming through her gag. Lee Jun could see the terror in her eyes, could see her begging him not to do it. But what choice did he have? He stepped forward and kissed Lona. It was like kissing death itself, cold and wrong and poisonous. Lona moaned against his mouth, her hands in his hair, and on the screen, Amira sobbed. But it was the distraction Lee Jun needed. His men struck. Gunfire erupted. Lona screamed as her guards went down. Lee Jun ran, following the signal from the video feed, bursting through doors until he found the underground bunker. And there was Amira, still tied to a chair, still crying. "Baby, I'm here," Lee Jun said, rushing to her. But as he reached for the ropes, he noticed something. The chair she was sitting on had a pressure plate. Lona's voice crackled over speakers. "Did you really think it would be that easy? She's sitting on a bomb. A pressure bomb. If she stands up, if the pressure releases, the entire city block detonates in 3 seconds. Boom. You, her, your baby, everyone in a 2-block radius. Gone." A timer appeared on the wall. 50 seconds and counting. "No," Lee Jun breathed. "No, no, no. Lee Jun, just go." Amira screamed. "Save yourself. I'm not leaving you. You have to. The baby needs you. The baby needs its mother." 40 seconds. Lee Jun's mind raced. There was only one solution. Only one way. He cut Amira's bonds, his hands shaking. "What are you doing?" She cried. "I love you," he said, pulling her to her feet. "I love you more than anything. More than my life." 30 seconds. He pressed a diamond bracelet into her hand. "Give this to our baby. Tell them their father loved them more than anything in this world." Lee Juno. He threw himself onto the pressure plate, replacing her weight with his. "Run," he roared. His men grabbed Amira, dragging her screaming toward the exit. 20 seconds. Lee Jun. Amira's scream echoed through the bunker. 10 seconds. They reached the safe zone where police cars surrounded the building. Amira fought like a wild animal, trying to break free, to run back to him. "There's a bomb," she screamed at the officers. "Lee Jun is still inside. You have to get him out." 5 seconds. Lee Jun. 3, 2, 1. The explosion was massive. A column of fire erupted from the building, the shockwaves shattering windows for blocks. The entire structure collapsed in on itself, concrete and steel crumbling like sandcastles. Sirens wailed. People screamed. And Amira fell to her knees, her hands on her stomach, her voice breaking as she screamed his name over and over. Above, in a helicopter, Lona Kong watched the destruction with a smile. "Goodbye, my love," she whispered before the helicopter disappeared into the night. 6 months later, Amira lived in a small apartment in Lagos, Nigeria. Her belly was huge now, the baby kicking constantly. She worked as a nurse at a local clinic, lived quietly, mourned the man she loved. On her nightstand sat the diamond bracelet Lee Jun had given her, and beside it, a framed photo from the airport, the moment he'd chased down her plane. Every night, she talked to her baby about their father. About his smile, his courage, his sacrifice. "Your daddy loved you so much," she'd whisper. "He gave his life for us." One evening, there was a knock at her door. Amira opened it, expecting Chidinma or maybe a neighbor. Instead, a man stood there. Tall, long black hair, dangerous eyes, and a scar running down the left side of his face from his temple to his jaw. "Lee Jun." "Hello, Amira," he said softly. The world tilted. Amira's vision blurred, her knees buckled, and the last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was Lee Jun's arms reaching out to catch her. And if you want to know how Lee Jun survived that explosion, what happened to Lona Kong, and whether Amira can forgive the man who died for her but somehow came back to life, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell because part 2 is coming, and trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Drop a comment below telling me what you think happened. Hit that like button if this story had you in your feelings, and I'll see you in the next one. This is just the beginning.